Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be tackling a question that sparked a huge debate on Reddit,
Oh, yeah.
and this one got a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Does a man lose respect for a woman if she takes him back after repeated infidelity? We're talking hundreds of responses,
Wow.
tons of strong opinions. It's
Yeah,
clear this really hits a nerve for people.
for sure. And what's really interesting is that this isn't, just some theoretical debate online. This stemmed from a real woman asking for advice, on Reddit.
Right.
So the responses, I feel like, were so much more raw and revealing because it was a real person in a real situation looking for help. And it
Yeah.
gives us a glimpse, I think, into how people actually view, these huge concepts of respect and forgiveness and second chances when you're talking about relationships.
And especially in the messy reality of relationships.
Right, not just in theory, but when it actually happens to you.
Okay, so let's dive into the deep end of this Reddit thread. What was the overall vibe, when you were scrolling through it?
Well, the overwhelming majority, I would say, and this is both men and women, felt that yes, respect is lost when a woman repeatedly forgives a partner's infidelity.
Really?
There was a sense that by taking him back again and again, she was diminishing her own worth and setting this low bar for how she expected to be treated.
And some of these comments were pretty blunt, right?
Oh, yeah, for
I
sure.
remember seeing some like, they didn't have respect for you to begin with, or you're showing them how much they can disrespect you and get away with it.
Right.
Like, those are really tough words to read.
They are, but they highlight, I think, a core belief that runs through a lot of these responses, and it's this idea that cheating is fundamentally disrespectful.
Okay.
It's a violation of trust, it's a disregard for the partner's feelings, and it's a breach of that commitment that's at the heart of the relationship.
It's almost like you're saying with your actions when you cheat, my needs matter more than our vows, more than your emotional well-being.
Yes.
So taking a cheater back repeatedly could be seen as condoning that disrespect and maybe even reinforcing it.
Exactly. And that's, I think, where this idea of self-respect comes into play because so many commenters urged the original poster to prioritize her own worth.
Mhm.
They argued that by repeatedly accepting this behavior, she was kind of signaling that she didn't value herself enough to demand better treatment.
And it becomes a cycle of disrespect from both the partner and from herself.
Absolutely. It's this like downward spiral.
And this idea of self-respect is so crucial, and I think it ties into something else that came up a lot in the thread, and it's the idea of choosing partners wisely.
Yeah.
What were some of the comments saying about that?
Well, there was a sense that maybe this woman needed to really examine her picker, as they call it.
Yeah.
That subconscious thing that draws us to certain types of partners.
Right, those underlying reasons why we're attracted to certain people.
Exactly. And some suggested that, maybe she was unconsciously attracted to men who are prone to infidelity, or maybe even subconsciously seeking out drama or recreating patterns from her past.
So it's not just about finding someone who's charming or attractive on the surface,
Right.
but really digging deeper and considering their character, their values, how they've treated other people in the past.
Yeah. Are they fundamentally respectful? Are they loyal? Are they trustworthy?
Right, those things matter.
Absolutely. And, this gets into deeper psychological territory because, there's research on attachment styles, for example,
Right.
that suggests that some people are more prone to anxious attachment where they're constantly seeking validation, and that can lead them into relationships with partners who are emotionally unavailable or disrespectful.
It's like that saying, we accept the love we think we deserve.
Oh, I love that one.
If someone has low self-esteem or they haven't fully processed, past hurts, they might unconsciously settle for partners who treat them poorly.
That's such a good point. And, it's not about blaming the victim, but recognizing that our past experiences and our own sense of worth can really influence the types of partners we chose.
Now, amidst all of this, this wave of he's disrespecting you comments, were there any voices offering a different perspective?
There were,
Yeah.
yeah, there were definitely a few, they definitely represented the minority.
Okay.
But some people acknowledged that motivations for cheating are complex,
Mm-hmm.
and that sometimes with genuine remorse and effort from both partners, healing and growth can occur.
This is where it gets really interesting to me because a few comments even suggested that men and women might view infidelity through totally different lenses.
Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating point.
What were some of the things that they were saying about that?
So this is where we have to tread carefully because generalizations about entire genders can be tricky, but
Of course.
some commenters propose that men might be more prone to cheat for purely physical reasons, like driven by that dopamine rush of novelty,
Right.
while women might be more likely to seek out emotional connections outside the relationship if they're feeling that void.
Wow, that's really thought-provoking. It raises so many questions like, Do men and women even define cheating in the same way?
Right.
Are their motivations and the emotional impact different?
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
I'm really curious to unpack this more as we go.
Me too.
And it speaks to this broader point too, right? That every relationship is unique.
Absolutely.
And what constitutes cheating can vary wildly depending on the couple's agreements and their boundaries.
Yeah, what might be a deal breaker for one person might be something another couple could work through.
So much to think about already.
I know, right?
And we're just getting started, but before we go any deeper, I do want to remind our listeners to subscribe to Voices of the Soul wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, please do.
And if you're watching us on Shauna Polidge's YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Your support helps us keep bringing you these deep dives.
All right, let's get back to it.
Now back to this fascinating world of infidelity and respect.
It's like we're saying that without clear communication and this, shared understanding, are just left guessing about our partner's needs and expectations.
Yeah, and that's when misunderstandings and those hurt feelings can really fester,
Absolutely.
especially with something as emotionally loaded as infidelity.
Oh, for
And
sure.
it brings up so many things.
Yeah.
You mentioned boundaries earlier, and it seemed like the Reddit community was really big on setting boundaries in these types of situations.
Yeah, boundaries came up a lot.
How did they see that relating to the whole respect issue?
Well, boundaries are super important in any relationship.
Right.
But I think they become even more crucial when you're trying to rebuild trust after a betrayal like infidelity.
Okay.
So clear boundaries kind of act as a safety net.
Yeah.
It's a way to protect yourself emotionally and define what you're willing to tolerate moving forward.
What are some examples of boundaries that someone might set in a situation like this?
Oh, it could be anything.
Okay.
It could be something like, I need full transparency about your whereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
To, no contact with the person you cheated with.
Yeah.
Or even something like, we need to go a couples therapy.
Okay.
It's about, clearly communicating your needs and your expectations to your partner.
Right.
And making sure that they understand the consequences if those boundaries are crossed.
So if someone repeatedly violates those boundaries, it's a pretty clear sign that they're not respecting their partner, right?
Yeah, it's like they're saying, your needs and feelings don't really matter that much to me.
And that's not the person who was cheated on has to make a really tough decision.
Right.
Can they stay in this relationship and feel safe and respected, knowing that this pattern could repeat?
Mm-hmm.
Or do they need to walk away and prioritize their own well-being?
It's a tough spot to be in, for sure.
And there's that self-respect piece. Again,
Absolutely.
it just keeps coming up.
So important.
It seems like a lot of the advice on Reddit really boiled down to put yourself first. You deserve to be with someone who treats you right.
Yeah, it was a big theme for sure. And, there's a lot of power in recognizing your own worth and refusing to settle for less than you deserve.
Right.
And I know that can be hard, especially if you have a history of being in these unhealthy relationships.
Right?
But learning to set boundaries and walk away from situations that are damaging your self-esteem is so liberating.
It's like learning to love yourself first so you can attract the kind of love that's healthy and fulfilling.
Oh, I love that.
And it all ties back into this whole concept of forgiveness, too.
Yeah.
Forgiveness could be such a powerful tool for healing, but it has to be genuine.
For sure.
And it has to come from a place of self-respect, not from a place of weakness or desperation.
Exactly. It's not about condoning the behavior or pretending it didn't happen.
Right.
But it's more about releasing the anger and the resentment that you're holding on to so you can find peace.
It's for your own peace of mind.
Yeah.
Now, there was also a lot of black about personal responsibility in that Reddit thread.
Oh, interesting.
People were saying things like, you need to look at your own patterns, or why are you attracted to these types of guys? This sounds like they were really encouraging the original poster to do some serious introspection.
Yeah, that's such a valuable part of personal growth, especially when we're talking about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to fall into familiar patterns, to just recreate the dynamics that we learned in childhood or in past relationships,
Right.
even if those patterns are harmful.
It's like that saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If you keep ending up with partners who disrespect you, maybe it's time to look inward and ask, what's attracting me to these types of people? What needs to change within me?
It's a powerful question, and it's not about blame,
Right.
but about taking ownership of your choices and your role in creating the dynamics of your relationships.
Okay?
It can be tough to look at that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's so empowering because it gives you the tools to break those cycles and create healthier, more fulfilling connections.
So it sounds like this Reddit thread, while it was focused on a very specific situation about infidelity,
Yeah.
it actually touched on some really universal truths about relationships and self-worth and the importance of setting boundaries.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that Even though every relationship is unique, there are certain fundamental principles that apply across the board.
Like what?
Oh, things like communication and respect and trust and a willingness to take responsibility for our own happiness.
And speaking of responsibility, I want to remind our listeners that they have the power to choose where they get their information and entertainment.
That's right.
And if you're enjoying this deep dive, please subscribe to Voices of the Soul wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yes, we'd love to have you.
And if you're watching us on Shauna Polidge's YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up.
It really helps us out.
We appreciate your support.
Sure.
Now back to the topic at hand. This whole men versus women perspective on infidelity is really intriguing.
It is, isn't it?
Is there any scientific backing to the idea that men and women might cheat for different reasons?
There's definitely some research that suggests this could be the case.
Oh, really?
Yeah, studies have shown that men tend to be more visually stimulated and driven by novelty,
Okay.
which could explain why some might be tempted to cheat for purely physical reasons.
That dopamine rush of a new conquest.
Exactly. Now, that's not to say that all men cheat for superficial reasons or that women never cheat for physical reasons.
Of course.
It's much more nuanced than that.
Yeah, we're talking about general tendencies here.
Right, exactly. And on the flip side, research has also shown that women tend to be more emotionally driven in their relationships.
Okay.
They're often seeking that deep connection and intimacy.
So for some women, infidelity might be triggered by feeling emotionally neglected or unfulfilled in their primary relationship.
Exactly. And that's why communication and emotional intelligence are so vital in relationships. Yeah.
Right? Because if both partners are aware of each other's needs and they're actively working to meet those needs, it creates a stronger bond and reduces the risk of straying.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive and nurturing the connection.
It's like they say the grass is greener where you water it.
Oh, that's a good one.
If you're not nurturing your own relationship, it's so easy to be tempted by what seems greener on the other side of the fence.
So true. And it's a conscious choice to invest in your relationship, put in the effort to keep it healthy and vibrant.
So we've talked about the societal expectations around infidelity, the importance of self-respect and boundaries, and even some potential gender differences in those motivations for cheating.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, can a relationship truly recover after cheating? Can respect ever be fully rebuilt?
That's the big question, isn't it?
What did the Reddit community have to say about that?
The responses were really varied, which I thought was interesting.
Okay.
Some felt very strongly that once that trust is broken, it's just impossible to fully repair. Yeah, they felt like the scar of infidelity would always remain, even if the couple decided to stay together.
Like a permanent crack in the foundation, no matter how much you try to patch it up.
Exactly, but then others were more optimistic.
Okay.
They argued that while it's super difficult, healing and reconciliation are possible,
Really?
but it takes genuine remorse, a willingness to do the work, and a lot of patience from both sides.
So it's not a hopeless situation, but it sounds like it takes an incredible amount of effort.
It's not about just sweeping the infidelity under the rug and pretending it never happened.
Right.
It's about acknowledging the hurt, addressing those underlying issues that led to the betrayal, and taking real concrete steps to rebuild trust.
And that's a process.
Oh, for sure. It's a long and challenging process, and it doesn't always work.
But for some couples, it might be worth the fight,
It might.
especially if there's that strong foundation of love and shared history and, a deep commitment to making things work.
And in those situations, professional help can be so valuable.
Oh, yeah. Therapy?
Couples therapy can provide a safe space to process everything you know, to develop healthy communication skills, and learn how to rebuild trust.
It's not a magic solution.
No, but it can be a powerful tool.
This deep dive has really been an eye-opener for me.
Me too.
It's amazing how one simple question on Reddit can spark such a rich and nuanced conversation about relationships and respect and just the complexities of being human.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we're all constantly learning and evolving, and that even the most challenging experiences can offer opportunities for growth and self-discovery.
And speaking of growth, I want to remind our listeners that we are always growing and evolving here at Voices of the Soul.
We are.
We love hearing your feedback, so please leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
And if you're watching us on Shauna Polidge's YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and let us know what you think of this deep dive.
We appreciate your support.
Your support means the world to us.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Now let's wrap up this conversation with some final thoughts. Okay, so we've really explored this whole spectrum of opinions, about whether respect can be rebuilt after infidelity. Some say it's impossible, others think it's possible, but it's a long, hard road.
Yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag.
So what I'm taking away from all of this is that there's really no easy answer, no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It depends on so many different factors, the specific circumstances of the infidelity, how much remorse the person who cheated is showing, the willingness of both partners to put in the work, their individual values around forgiveness and second chances. It's complex.
It's so nuanced and layered, and even if a couple decides to try and rebuild trust, there are still so many hurdles to overcome.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How do you actually do that? How do you rebuild trust once it's been broken like that?
That's the million-dollar question. And I think a lot of it comes down to honesty and transparency and consistent action. It's not enough to just say, I'm sorry, and expect everything to magically go back to normal. The person who cheated has to show through their actions over time that they're truly committed to changing their behavior and really earning back their partner's trust.
So actions speak louder than words in this situation.
Absolutely. And the person who was cheated on, you know, they need to be able to communicate their needs clearly and set those firm boundaries that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
They need to be able to feel safe and secure in the relationship, knowing that their partner is respecting those boundaries and really prioritizing their emotional well-being.
So it's almost like building a new foundation for the relationship, brick by brick, based on honesty and respect and really clear communication.
I love that analogy because it emphasizes that it's a process and it takes time and effort.
It's not going to happen overnight.
No, and sometimes even with all the best intentions and effort in the world, the damage is just too deep to repair.
Right. And sometimes the healthiest choice, even though it's painful, is to walk away.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to acknowledge. Sometimes walking away is the best thing you can do for yourself. It's about recognizing your own worth and refusing to settle for a relationship that is consistently causing your pain or diminishing your self-respect.
And it could be really empowering to realize that you always have a choice,
You do.
even in a situation that feels incredibly difficult and painful.
And, it's also important to remember that there is no shame in seeking support, whether it's from friends or family or a therapist. Navigating the aftermath of infidelity is so challenging, and having that support system can make a world of difference.
This whole deep dive has really highlighted the importance of self-awareness and communication and healthy boundaries
Mm-hmm.
in any relationship, whether or not infidelity is involved.
Those are the cornerstones of a healthy relationship. By prioritizing those things, we create a much stronger foundation for love and trust and respect to flourish.
Well, we've covered so much ground today, from the really fiery opinions on Reddit to the psychological complexities of infidelity, and then this, you know, challenging but ultimately empowering journey of trying to rebuild trust and respect.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
What are some final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with today?
I think the most important takeaway is that every relationship is unique. And, there's just no one-size-fits-all approach to navigating these challenges. What matters most is that both partners feel heard and respected and valued. And, remember, you always have the power to choose what's best for you, even when it's really hard.
That's beautifully said. And on that note, we want to thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive into the complexities of relationships and infidelity. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Voices of the Soul wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're watching us on Shonda Polika's YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. We love connecting with our listeners and exploring these fascinating topics together. Until next time, keep those conversations flowing, keep learning, and keep growing.